Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where we have been working on changes to this system that we've got here. And I was thinking, what exactly is the point of having this section be nuclear if we have so much fuel here? I'm not sure that there is a lot of point to it, to be honest. So what this would end up likely meaning for us is that this would get ditched. And then this would need to get adapted to. So adapt, and that would be going from medium to small, like this. And then this guy would just get connected, in theory, like that. Now, as long as this stage is capable of landing and taking off and returning to orbit and docking up to this, we should be absolutely fine. In theory. In theory. So we need to definitely go through and fix our staging. Our staging is horrifically broken right now. There is no doubt about that. So this guy needs to be moved up. This stage can be gotten rid of. Okay, so all of these fire first, obviously. I'm wondering what the Kerbal thrust to weight at sea level is. 1.51. So that's not the highest thrust to weight in the world, but it will work. So that's okay. After these go off, we want to have a new stage here, and it should be, yes, all of our SRBs detaching. So that's fine. At that point, in theory, we'd be at 8.83 thrust to weight. No, 1.3. That's more like it. 1.66 here. Yeah, we shouldn't be too concerned about all of that right now. That's fine. So next up, there are additional detachments that need to happen. So specifically, the next detachment that would happen would be this one. So that goes there like that. Then the next detachment would be this. That would happen at the same time as the nuclear engine firing. Oh, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. That would go here. This guy would need to be up a fair amount higher. I don't know where exactly. We'll put it there for now. Okay, double checking this. So main engines and SRBs firing in stage 1. Stage 2 is SRB detachment. Stage 3 is outer core detachment. Stage 4 is center core first stage detachment and firing of the nuclear engine. Stage 5 would probably end up being detachment of the outer core here. So we would need to add in a stage here, stage 5. And that would be these 4 decouplers. Those would go right there. Okay, that looks solid. At this point, we're at 1.19 thrust to weight in Kerbal vacuum. That's not too bad. What about over Kerbal? 0.54? Yeah, that's not too bad at all. Look at all this delta V, and we're not even done yet. So that's amazing. Next up would be, there's a decoupler there that is actually a correct decoupler. And then all 7 of these would fire. I don't think that's actually what we want to have happen here. So this happens, we're going to detach here via our docking. Then we would have 6 of these fire. So it would be not the center, which is this one. I'm going to move that into its own like this. And then we would move it. Okay, what just happened there? Okay, this decoupler does not fire here. This decoupler fires with this engine. Okay, this decoupler would happen significantly later. What are these 6? Okay, that's that detachment there. So that would happen at the same time, in theory, that this engine fires. Okay, this guy would go up here. We would ditch this stage. And then we'd have our chutes. This should be approximately correct in terms of our staging. Okay, so that looks good. We have a ton of burn time. In fact, 150 tons of burn time on our nuclear engine. That's going to be worth 11,000 meters per second. So this is a significantly lighter second stage with a lot further travel time. This is over double the travel time, plus it'll be easier to lift, in theory. So there's that. I'm also potentially interested in putting on some solar panels here and having lights on it, I think. So we would put in electrical generators here, and these would not be gigantors, I don't think. We would just have small ones. They don't need to be retractable. So we'll take this up to 4x symmetry, and we'll just put them here, like that. Then, as far as lights go, honestly, I don't think we need them. It should be reasonably fine. The main question at this point is, how are we going to convince this guy that it should be pointing a convenient direction, right? And I think the answer to that is we ditch this and we bring a pilot. So we would put in something along the lines of a Mark 1-3 Gumball here, although maybe even larger than that. A Mark 3L Wanderer? Yeah. Something like this. We'd have a pilot here. We would only be landing with the single pilot in the Mark 1 tin can. But a pilot would remain in orbit here so that we'd be able to steer this guy and have it be correctly lined up for the docking. That would just make matters far simpler. Now, the next question is, these 6 engines, what would their thrust to weight be, in theory, over Tylo? 1.73. Okay, it just re-updated. 2.18. 1607 meters per second. And then this engine here over Tylo would have 2.72 thrust to weight. It doesn't think it would have any burn time, but that's not accurate. That definitely would have burn time. So that is interesting. That's some interesting thrust to weight there. That should be more than enough to get us into orbit and docked back up with our hydrogen. So that looks decent, I think. The main question now is, do we feel like we need to bring along some amount of weight to have aerodynamics on here? So this would be like nose cones, like this. How heavy are these? They're pretty heavy, actually. 1.3 tons, that's pretty heavy. We could detach them partway up. I kind of want to try it as is, though. So that's interesting. Let's hop over to our Kerbal manager, and we could bring up to 4 Kerbals in here. We don't need to. But we could bring, say, 2 Kerbals. This is kind of like the inverse of the Apollo setup here, where we're going to leave 2 in orbit and have 1 go down. In reality, of course, they did the opposite, and that makes a lot more sense to have 2 go down and 1 stay in orbit, but this is what we've got. So that seems reasonably fine. I mean, we could redesign our lander, but I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of want to just see how this goes. So let's save this as a Moho lander. I am still and always forever will be concerned about decoupling of these SRBs. That is going to be a forever thing. So let's put this thing out on the pad. And let's see if it immediately falls apart. Well, that's a good sign. Okay. It did not immediately fall apart. It is very tall, and it is fairly dark here. But that's okay. Let's lift this thing off and see what happens with the SRB detachment. We've been having good luck on that, but let's go. Are we drifting towards this tower a little bit? We might be, but I think we're going to clear it. Yeah, we're going to clear it, for sure. Let's just put this into straight up for right now, and yeah, off we go. So the question here is one of detachment, right? And if we do have a problem with the detachment, I will absolutely revert this. Because at that point, all we would do is we'd just stage until everything was clear, and we would just bring them back down with the parachutes. It would be fine. That's absolutely no issue whatsoever. Reverting is just a time savings. So far, so good on this front. But we don't expect to have any problems here, to be clear. It's interesting that we have the empty seat there, and then the empty seat here, and then Jeb. But whatever. It's absolutely fine. So off we go to Tylo. In theory. Assuming we have good SRB detachment, which I expect will probably be okay. Ever since I redesigned the attachments on the SRB, we've technically not had problems with it, although in reality, there have been some close calls, no doubt about it. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be very interesting for sure. We're just bringing our apoapsis up nice and high for right now. Of course, our current apoapsis is 4 kilometers. It's not phenomenal. But that's okay. We're burning off just crazy, crazy amounts of fuel right now, and the craft is getting much lighter. Much, much, much lighter. So that is wonderful. Also, note the ratio between methane and oxygen. The 4-to-1 ratio in terms of its mass. That's a lot. Imagine if we didn't have to bring any oxidizer, which is the point of the nuclear engine. So that's wonderful. The nuclear engine does not require oxidizer, and so that means that it carries a lot more fuel and is a lot lighter. All at once. So in theory, we should be propelling quite a lot higher, because this second stage is about half the mass it was previously. A little over half the mass, I think, like 60% of the mass. And so we should get a fair amount further on our SRBs and our first stage, which would of course be wonderful. I am expecting us to have quite a lot of fuel left in these hydrogen tanks when we end up arriving. Oh, and we should make sure that our lights are on. There we go. That makes things better. We should have quite a lot of fuel left when we arrive at Tylo, which is of course why we're doing the undocking method rather than the just abandonment method. So that looks in theory fine. Actually, just having those lights gives us a lot more definition to our rocket. Nice. I like it. So we've got about 35 tons of SRB fuel left for our SRBs. That's roughly a quarter or so left of the fuel. And we're sitting at about 40 kilometer apoapsis right now. I would like to put us into hold attitude. Okay, we're taking this over to prograde. So we're going to start getting some amount of horizontal speed here, but we're just going to burn on the prograde marker for now until these SRBs burn out. So we're just wanting to settle into this position, hopefully not have a big oscillation when these burn out. That would be awkward. And we've got about 17 tons of solid fuel left here. Keep in mind our thrust to weight is going up all the time, as our thrust is unchanging, but our mass is going down tremendously. Like an extremely significant amount of mass reduction. So that is all looking fine. We've also got a sunset, I believe, over here that we're busily outrunning. So that's looking good. We're already at an apoapsis of 96 kilometers, 100 kilometers. Okay, that's looking good on the apoapsis front. Like I said, this stage is going to propel us a lot further. Okay, SRBs are off. Let's see how this detachment goes. It's always spicy. I'm just grimacing the entire time. But it's clear. We had a good detachment. Okay, we are in that case bringing ourselves all the way over to horizontal speed. We'll burn there until we're at probably, I don't know, like 250 kilometers for our periapsis, or rather apoapsis. We're not going to be able to have our periapsis be that low, of course, but, or rather that high. We're going to need to burn closer to the apoapsis. That's okay. We're overshooting this a little bit. I'm trying to counteract this turn, but I definitely overshot the burn slightly. You can see our apoapsis is going down right now because we are burning too much vertical speed off. We did overshoot that. I underestimated how quickly we would get that turn under control. That is entirely my fault. Okay. So with that coming back up, we're just going to be parking at the horizon approximately here. And going purely horizontal. Cool. That looks reasonable for now. So we're currently running away from the sunrise, which is, I guess, to be expected. But we're just going to burn here for a while. We've got 4 kilometers per second of DV in this stage. This is the power of having so much lighter of a second stage, and that is going to reach so much further. It's insane how powerful this rocket is at this point. So that's cool. We're very happy about that. We're going to continue to burn here, like I said, until we have an apoapsis of somewhere around 250 kilometers. We just need to build up a bunch of horizontal speed at this time, and we have so much thrust to weight that that's not going to be a problem. Now, thrust to weight on our interplanetary transfer stage is going to be a lot lower. We want to be out of the Kerbal system by the time we are on that stage, because we're going to have long burn times, but that shouldn't be an issue. That definitely shouldn't be an issue. When we're leaving Tylo, that might be an issue. To be clear, this is probably wildly overbuilt for returning from Tylo. This thing can probably take us almost anywhere, assuming that it has enough power in these stages to land and take off again. That's the assumption, but we'll see how that goes. 10 Kerbals on Eve would be interesting. We definitely would not have the ability to do that with this exact setup. We'd have to design a new vehicle, and that would probably be assembled in orbit. We'd probably build that in parts. But for now, we can see our orbital velocity is up to about 1,600 meters per second. I do want to do a little bit of a correction to our attitude here. We've drifted a little bit as our orbit has taken us onward. Okay, something about like that. We definitely have a little bit of oscillation going on, but we're in vacuum at this point, and that's looking absolutely fine. We've got quite a lot of burn time left in this stage, and we can see our apoapsis is approaching that 250 kilometer marker nicely. So that's looking good. 230, 240, and 250. Engine shutdown. Let's extend our solar panels. Not that there's any light to catch right now, but let's just head on over to this apoapsis, and we are, of course, going to be creating a maneuver plan here. Looks like I need to get rid of debris again, but we're going to bring this out and circularize it. So that is going to be looking at about 500 meters per second or so. That's not bad. That is not bad at all. I like it. So we've got quite a lot of DV in this thing. No doubt about that. We're going to start turning, and turning is going to be slow, but it's not going to be as slow as it was in the past, because this second stage is a lot more wieldy? I don't know that that's the term. The opposite of unwieldy. I've never used the term wieldy used, though, so there is that. Now we're going to have some electric charge issues. That's not surprising. As we start to turn here, that will be a thing. We're on the dark side of Kerbal right now, and it's going to take some time. We may have to gimbal our way over. We'll see. I would prefer not to have to do that, but that may end up being necessary. Our reaction wheels are still not very powerful. We're not really intending to be turning all of this. We're intending to be turning this section. And that will go much better once we get that done. So we've still got a fair amount of electric charge here. We can start to turn a little bit. Yeah, this is turning almost imperceptibly. It is turning a little bit, but heavy on the little. I wish that we could physics warp the turn in KSP2. That would be really, really nice. In KSP1, you can physics warp it up to 4x, and that makes this sort of thing go a lot better. But you can see here, we are now starting to get a fair amount of turn actually into this. So we're starting to build up the momentum that we need to get this actually turned. That's looking good. Once we get halfway there, of course, we'll have to start trying to stop it, but I'm not actually going to do that. For the time being, this is looking reasonably fine. We're just draining out a bunch of the electric charge for the moment. We do have the ZPM, or ZPM, that is not the right term. We do have the RTG here. A ZPM is an entirely different and much more fictional technology. And we do have the RTG here, and that will keep us going for a little bit anyway. Interesting. We just stopped draining electric charge. Ah, the game thinks we built up enough momentum now and it's letting us coast. That's why our electric charge is starting to slowly trickle upwards. Looks good. Looks absolutely good. It's starting to go down again. It's probably going to start attempting to stop the turn relatively soon. I actually don't want it to. I'm going to turn off the SAS for the moment, and we're going to let our electric charge build up. And we're just going to be slowly drifting with this turn. We've got about 5 minutes until this burn, and it's going to be a bit. So I am going to not make you sit through all that. We'll be back once we're closer to the turn or the burn, whichever comes first. See you guys in a moment. Okay, so here we are. That wasn't too bad, really. We're fairly close. As you can see, we've kind of gone a little too high up, but I'm going to warp forward here. That's going to kill our current physics, and we're just going to hold here, and we're going to warp forward a little bit, and we'll get a little closer to this burn. Also, hopefully, we'll come out of the night side here. That would be awfully nice. But for now, this is about the best we've got. Let's warp forward a little further. We're going to gimbal the rest of the way. So we've got about 10 seconds left on this burn. 5, 4, 3. These are very long seconds indeed. 2, 1, and mark. Excellent. So we're burning and we're turning. Actually, we're not turning. Now we're turning. Cool. So all we're angling to do here is get ourselves into a roughly circular orbit. That's the only real goal at this point. This is going to be burning off some amount of this fuel, but we're going to be utilizing the rest of it in our escape from Kerbal burn. But this orbital insertion burn is absolutely going to be fine here. We're now officially in orbit. And I'm just watching the periapsis here. Good enough. That'll do. So engine is shut down. We've got 250 meters per second left in these tanks. The real question now is, what ends up happening on the detachment of these tanks? That's the only potentially spicy detachment left. So we want to be heading towards Tylo, which means we want to be burning on, well, basically where we're at right now. Let's just do this burn right now. We just want to burn prograde. Okay, settling into prograde. Those engines are off. I'm watching our turn here. Okay, let's detach these now. Fingers crossed. Do we have a clean detach? Clean detach. Okay, beautiful. So that looks fantastic. We've got 3,000 meters per second in just this stage here. So that is, of course, going to be plenty for us to do our Kerbal escape and probably our inclination change and maybe even part of our home and transfer over to Joule. So this looks good. I don't think we might do a circularization burn. We'll see. For now, I want to get us out of the Kerbal system, of course. And yeah, we'll be heading back to Moho, but I want to head to Tylo with this design. We're going the wrong way at this point to go to Moho. So we'll go to Moho probably next. That'll be fine. We do have some more science missions to clean up, of course. And checking in on our apoapsis here, we can see that that is very slowly raising up, but it is absolutely raising up. So this is looking fine. We've had no sunlight thus far. We've been almost exclusively powering off of engine alternators. There's been a little trickle from the RTG, but not very much, to be honest. And that's fine. We fully expect that. That said, we are going to be powering into sunrise very soon here. I'm keeping an eye on our apoapsis. We're just looking for an escape velocity at this point. So we're just going to accelerate until we are away from Kerbin. Although this thrust to weight is not all that high. If I recall correctly, in the VAB, it said that this would be at like 0.53. Fair enough. I mean, that's not the worst thrust to weight as far as like vacuum orbital operations go. So 0.53 is okay. You only want it to be like 1.6, 1.7 when you're taking off from the ground. After that, this is absolutely fine. I mean, higher thrust to weight isn't a bad thing. It's also not necessarily a good thing. At this point, it's really more the specific impulse that matters. So that is fine. We're at about 6,000 kilometers for our orbit, and we're going to be passing the orbit of Minmus very shortly. Excellent. And then we're going to, of course, be escaping from the Kerbin sphere of influence. Actually, Minmus is out here. This is Moon. We were briefly on an impact trajectory with Moon there, but we're going to be clearing that without a problem. I don't think we'll have any issues with Minmus either. Correct. No issue with Minmus. Okay, let's bring this out, and let's keep an eye on the apoapsis here. Okay. Cutting that... actually, hang on. No, let's not cut the burn. Let's keep burning here until the apoapsis is somewhere around... Probably somewhere around the dress orbit, a little after, kind of the orbit that default name 21 here is in. We need to clear out some of the debris again, but we'll get to that. Okay, so this is looking pretty solid. We're moving at about 3 kilometers per second and continuing to push this out. Let's just bring this up to about a 10x time warp. Hang on, what's going on here? What are we colliding with? We're not colliding. This is just a moon encounter. And it's not projecting our movement beyond to the moon encounter. Okay. As we burn, this periapsis is getting closer to the moon. So let's call this good as far as this burn goes. Let's warp beyond the moon. We're not really gravitationally assisting from the moon, although we could, but I'm not going to do that here. This maneuver is not really particularly conducive to that. Farewell, moon! We'll be back, but not to you anytime soon. Cool. So off we go from Moon and Kerbin, and now we can see what our orbit is here. So this should be a reasonably decent orbit. What is that encounter? This is out past Duna. Yeah, that'll do. So we should definitely escape Kerbin at this time. So that is going to be warping to about here. Farewell, Kerbin. We will be back. And it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to head back to the Jool system and go land on Tylo. Jool is, of course, going to be our target. So let's set this. Actually, we're going to have to do this next time anyway. This will get cleared when I restart the game. So we'll do that all next time. That sounds good. We're going to be heading out to Jool, so we'll just probably set our inclination. We'll circularize this and then do a Hohmann transfer. No big deal. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time. I'm just realizing that hang on, let's head back over here quick. I'm just noticing these solar panels didn't actually extend when we did the button here. Not sure why. Well, we'll get those extended. It's not a big deal. See you all next time.